Fulham are prepared to match Manchester United's asking price for Scott McTominay. United do not need to sell to buy, but are prepared to wait till the last day to sign Manuel Ugarte, and loads of exit news that's going to keep you right up to date with all the latest Manchester United news and transfer news. Welcome to Man United Review. My name's Jamie. Before we get into it, smash a like on the video and let's jump straight into it. So let's kick off with the McTominay news. So Scott McTominay would prefer to stay at Manchester United, but Fulham feel he would bring a level of pedigree and quality they need in midfield. So that came from Dean Jones, who is he's a fairly credible source. And then we've also had Sky Sports saying that Manchester United will only consider offers if McTominay makes it clear he wants to go, and only then if they are happy with the offer. United understood to be happy to keep him. They remained in talks with Fulham. So there's two kind of sources there confirming that effectively Scott McTominay would prefer to stay at Manchester United and that United would be happy to keep him as well, which seems to me just like a little bit of classic negotiation tactics where the deal's kind of getting finalised, or we've got clubs coming in with bids that are still maybe lowballing. And so United put like a story out there to some sources, effectively saying, well, we're happy to keep him. He doesn't want to go, as a way to kind of either generate more interest, maybe get McTominay some more wages to make the offers more enticing for him to leave, or to get the asking price that we want for Scott McTominay. So that to me feels a little bit like negotiation tactics. There's been another story coming out though from Michael Plant for Mike World UK, who is not the most reliable, but not unreliable is the way I would kind of phrase it, saying that Fulham are now willing to match Manchester United's 30 million asking price for Scott McTominay, and a deal could be thrashed out in the coming days. So there's a few different reports coming out regarding Scott McTominay. I still think that all roads are leading in one direction. It's just a case of who's going to pay that golden number that United want, and then I do think that United would sell Scott McTominay if they get the 30 or 25 to 30 million that they want, but would also be prepared to keep him if they don't. But that's always been the case with Scott McTominay. But I do feel a couple of those stories and maybe negotiation tactics, but you can let me know what you think about them in the comments. Now, the other player that's red hot at the moment and has been for what feels like forever, Manuel Ugarte. And again, there's been a bit of kind of mixed news coming out regarding him today. So firstly, PSG and United are accelerating in discussions for the transfer of Manuel Ugarte. It's expected to be a permanent deal, and the French club won't lose out financially after paying 60 million euros for him last year. Now, that came out via French Info, who's not a source that I've heard of before. They've got 2.4 million followers on Twitter, though, so I'm going to assume that they're fairly decent or fairly credible, which is weird, saying that the French club won't lose out financially after paying 60 million euros for him last year. So what are they saying? That effectively discussions are, and they still feel that PSG are going to get the 60 million euros, which is not the case, because if we were just going to pay the 60 million euros or happy to pay it, we would have paid it by now, because we've been chasing Ugarte for, again, as I mentioned before, literally forever, it feels like. So, yeah, interesting to see. I think coming from French sources, that sounds to me like a PSG brief saying, well, like putting it out there again, saying that we're only going to be selling him for the 60 million euros. I think a lot of this, right, before I go through the rest of the news, I think a lot of this is PSG are just trying to save face, because I think they know full well they overpaid for Ugarte last season. And they don't want to admit that they've made a mistake. It's like us holding on to Anthony or trying to get, £70 million back for Sancho. Do you know what I mean? Because we would just want to save face and say the fact that actually, no, he's a good player. We didn't make a mistake in the transfer market, or us asking for, 90 odd million pounds or euros for Anthony back. It's just a way of trying to kind of almost admit that you didn't make a mistake. That's what I kind of feel with the Ugarte situation, where PSG are just kind of not wanting to seem like they made a big mistake in the transfer market from their perspective. But you can let me know what you think about that in the comments. And then sticking with Michael Plant, he also said that Manchester United have made progress in their pursuit of Manuel Ugarte. United are trying to push ahead with the deal, and there is hope at Old Trafford his signing can be secured. Again, one of those kind of I'm going to say hit and miss journalists. Can be quite reliable though when it comes to United news. And then there's been Jack Talbot though, who is fairly credible, said there's still confidence from PSG that Ugarte will leave to Manchester United, firm on the 60 million euro valuation, but there is a belief it'll happen at a lower rate. And Jamie Jackson, who's probably the most credible of the sources so far mentioned today, saying that United do not need to sell McTominay or any other squad member to finance a deal for Ugarte. Manchester United are willing to wait until transfer deadline day to try to sign Ugarte. Now, Jamie Jackson's one that does get briefed by the club, and he's in the press conferences and stuff like that as well. So he does have a bit of credibility when it comes to United news. He's not like a David Ornstein or a Romano, but he is very good and accurate when it comes to United reporting. Effectively saying, which was a big update, really, we do not need to sell McTominay or any other squad member to finance the deal for Ugarte. And United are basically saying to PSG, we are willing to wait because we know you are going to lower the asking price. Which is really interesting. I mean, fair play to Ineos if they do that, because we've said, and I'm not going to be a hypocrite and say that Ineos this transfer window need to walk away. We're going to have to go through some pain in the transfer market, right, to reset how United are thought of and our reputation in the transfer market for not being mugged, not having our pants pulled down by transfer fees and allowing clubs to dictate how we do business, which shouldn't be the case. It shouldn't be that way. And we've seen it with Brantford already where we've walked away. We were aggressive with the Lenny Yoro deal, knowing full well that Real Madrid couldn't outbid us in that scenario. Waited for De Ligt, waited for Mazraoui. Do you know what I mean? And it seems, so going off of that report from Jamie Jackson, it's what some of you have been saying in the comments, where effectively United are only going to get him for the price that they think that he's valued at. There might be a little bit of wiggle room. We're not that kind of naive, or sometimes you do have to have like a bit of, like, if they're saying 60, maybe a deal's done at 55, for example, right? But it just feels like that's been the case where United are just adamant, we are not paying 60 million euros and we will wait till the last second, knowing full well that you're probably going to drop your valuation. And if not, maybe lining up deals like Sanderberg or Amrabat still waiting in the wings. Adrian Rabiot's not got a club yet. Do you know what I mean? So there could be something like that potentially going on, but let me know what you think in the comments. Now, Jamie Jackson also said the window closes at 11 p.m. on the 30th of August, and United are intent on making more sales before then. The players the club would listen to offers for include Lindelof, Casemiro, Antony, Sancho, and McTominay. So Jamie Jackson, again, going against some of the McTominay stories earlier, saying that United were willing to keep him. And he's probably a little bit more credible, or in my opinion anyway, a little bit more credible than those particular sources. And funnily enough, there's been a few updates on some of those players today. Obviously, Anthony's going to be really difficult to get rid of purely because of the wages and the fact he has got an ongoing court investigation as well for the allegations against him last year. Casemiro brought you news recently where Saudi Pro League clubs were interested in him until there was a change in the director at one of their was it El Attihad. So that's an interesting one to keep an eye on. Lindelof, Sancho, McTominay, yeah, we've known for ages that those are the players that potentially United will be looking to move on. So in regards to Lindelof, Victor Lindelof isn't desperate to leave United unless there's a big offer from a big club. Interest from various clubs are there, but nothing is concrete. While it isn't confirmed, Victor Lindelof is more likely to leave on a free next summer instead of signing for another club this window. That came from Fabrizio Romano. Plus, I also think Victor... bought your news before, he's been photoed on the crutches. So I think he's currently injured, which means if he's injured, he's conveniently got transfer window flu, which means he can't be sold anyway if he's carrying an injury because he's not going to pass a medical. So that's potentially one where Lindelof's going to have to stay and then he's going to walk out for free next summer. But it is what it is. You can't help it if a player's injured. Plus, I don't think there's been that much kind of interest in Lindelof. Not from because he is a decent defender. But yeah, could be one potentially either to keep an eye on for the end of the window or might be one that ends up staying because one, he's injured, and two, there's not that much interest in him, and he is on the last year of his contract as well. But let me know what you think about that in the comments. Another player who potentially could be leaving is Hannibal Mabry. So Mabry's expected to depart United in the latter stages of the summer market. Rangers are keen, but a move to Spain or France seems more likely at this moment in time. Again, that came from Michael Plant, who can be fair, can be decent when it comes to United stories. Christian Erikson, again, same journalist has said that Christian Erikson could also leave United before the transfer window shuts, with Ajax keen on re-signing the player. Obviously, we've got links with Palestri going to Panathinaikos, and again, there's been I think it's the same Greek journalist that came out with reports this morning saying that Panathinaikos is set to sign Facundo Palestri for a club record transfer fee. Their current record transfer fee is 8 million euros for Cisse, I think it is, that went to Panathinaikos. And then there's been another, so Will Fish is joining Cardiff City on a permanent transfer as well. That's come out today. So potentially quite a few exits. I added it up, right? And this is just rough figures because obviously I don't know the price teams are going to pay for those players, but just roughly I was thinking in my head. So what, 5 million for Erikson? Oddly, that represents pure homegrown or pure profit because we signed him on a free transfer. So we'd actually make £5 million for Erikson if you got that for him, which would be pretty decent. Hannibal, maybe I was thinking about 10. He's only got a year left on his contract, so it might be less than that. But remember, there was a story that I brought to you before that was saying that United are going to look between 6 and 10 million euros for their players, the same as what they got for Alvaro Fernandez and Willy Camboalis. So what, about 10 million, let's say. Palestri could be around 8 million, depending on obviously whether there's add-ons or anything. And then McTominay 30, you could be looking about 50 million quid, just for those 4 players, which is insanity. And Hannibal, depend on the price, we might break even on. Palestri, we might actually make a couple of million quid on. McTominay's profit. So all 4 of those players could potentially be profit for United, which is madness. But then also it frees up the wages, it frees up the squad space as well. And that's another player that's potentially the Ugarte fee. But then if Jamie Jackson's right with what he was saying, we've got the money available to get Ugarte anyway. So could there be a absolute flurry at the end of the transfer window? I don't personally think there is, because there's not that many links to many other players at the moment. Yes, we always get linked to Ben Chilwell and all these kind of players, but they're not really coming from the most credible of sources. And there's always transfer rumor sites and stuff. I mean, I spend literally all day reading all of that shit because I love it. That's why I started this channel, because as a bit of a passion project of mine. But yeah, there could be a flurry of activity at the end of the transfer window. And then the other thing I was thinking as well regarding that, I've not had anyone kind of mentioning this before as well. Even if we don't get the players in now, right? Obviously, Ineos have just come in. Dan Ashworth, Omar Barada, and all of that, they are new. So I think they're playing catch up this transfer window, right? And I think they're doing a brilliant job so far. If we get all these deals across the line, I think if we get Ugarte in, that is a really impressive first transfer window for Ineos. And we have got rid of some of the fringe players that needed to be moved on. Yes, we haven't got rid of, Anthony and potentially Harry Maguire, these sort of players, but they're on massive wages. They're not easy players to shift. But the ones like Donny van der Beek, for example, is gone. You could be looking at moving on Hannibal, Palestri, potentially McTominay. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think they've done a really good job so far. But the other thing is, if we do sell these players and we don't spend the money, we'll have money available for January. Like, how many years has it been since we actually signed a player? Not on loan, not, Igalo or Wout Weghorst or Sabitzer on a short-term loan for the end of the season. Actually gone out and thought, do you know what it is? We could strengthen this, and there's an opportunity in January to go out and buy a player, because I can't remember the last time we did that. So even if we don't spend that money this summer, it's still money in the bank for future transfer windows as well. And then that gives Ashworth and Barada and all these players time to scout and time to actually sit down and do a little bit of homework and a little bit of data analysis, or working with the scouts and doing a little bit like that as well, which is potentially another interesting way to look at it. But let me know what you think about that in the comments. And that's you all up to date with all the latest Manchester United transfer news. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I do enjoy reading them. Smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I will see you in the next one.